folks, I think we are going to get started here. There should be a couple more people that will pop on, but I do want to really try to just keep this to about 50 minutes max, and get people off in time to get back to work and to whatever else you folks need to do. So a couple of notes before we get started here. I'll just do a little bit of an introduction of myself. But before I do that, I do just want to say, I've noticed in these trainings, they can tend to be a little bit impersonal just because it's kind of me just talking or the presenter just talking, and today it is just me. So if you have any questions or if you want to interact, the best way to do that is there is a little question section over on the right-hand side in your menu where you can send in questions or comments. Please feel free to use that. I'll answer questions as we go here, and we can kind of interact that way. For the most part, throughout the campaign, it's going to be a lot of one-on-one talk and discussions and email with folks. So the purpose of today is really just to kind of do an overview of the campaign and get people trained up and ready to go out and talk about solar power and get people recruited and into the campaign. So it should be pretty exciting. So my name is Sabrina. I am the organizer for Dakota Rural Action, working on the Solarize campaign here in South Dakota. And I'm really excited for us to launch on Monday. We've been putting this campaign together since about mid-April, and what we have planned for the state is, I think, really exciting. So we have a lot of interest already, and we have a lot of people who are signing up for energy consultations or to participate in one way, shape, or form in Solarize South Dakota. So should be a lot of fun. And as Solarize ambassadors, your role in this campaign is huge, because you're going to be the people who are out in communities and working with people to spread the word and to get more people thinking about investing in solar and thinking about their energy use, which is really exciting. So we will just jump in here. So the outline of kind of what we'll talk about today is just there on your screen. So we'll just do an overview of the campaign, and we'll talk a little bit about the role of Solarize ambassadors. We'll do a little bit of an introduction to solar, which is good background information for folks to have as you're out in communities talking to people about solar energy. It's good to just have a little bit of a background and kind of what that looks like. The other pieces that we'll cover are just the launch week events and outreach throughout the campaign and kind of what that's going to look like. So actually just straight out of the chute, getting people plugged in, getting you plugged in to the campaign and to talking to your fellow community members about solar. So again, if you have any questions throughout this, just type them in that little question box and I will answer them as they come through. And just as a note too, I am recording this, so if you miss something, if you have other questions, this is being recorded and it will just be basically transformed into a YouTube video that you can watch anytime you want. So just as kind of an overview of the Solarize South Dakota campaign, we are launching this as a statewide campaign. We are really promoting it as a way for people to learn more about where their electricity comes from, what electricity they're using, and really we're urging people and helping people invest in solar to the extent that they can. So there's two kind of main prongs of where people as participants, as members of DRA, can plug into the campaign. So the first part of that is our outreach through the Solarize ambassadors, which is you folks and the folks who will be trained this evening, and then really engaging people at a deeper level through our energy consultations, which the energy consultants will do. So all of those folks got trained last week. They're ready to go. So our job as Solarize ambassadors is really to bring people into the campaign, to do more broad level outreach to the general public, to talk about renewable energy, to talk about why we're running this campaign, and to motivate people to take part in some way, shape, or form. And I'll talk a little bit about the various ways that people can interact with and engage with the campaign. So those are kind of the two main prongs. And these components will work together, because the folks who are doing the energy consultations will get connected with people who want to invest in solar, really through the outreach work that you will do as Solarize ambassadors. And I really hope that you think about this as being an ambassador for the campaign, and really, from whatever your story is, and from whatever position you're coming from, whatever reason you are passionate about renewable energy for, use that and use that to motivate more of our state citizens to be thinking along the same lines and be thinking about potentially investing in solar. So the role, of course, of the Solarize ambassador is to reach out into your community, to educate the public, and to recruit people to take part in the campaign. So our role is kind of two-pronged. It's public education, but it's public education with the intent of recruiting people to participate in Solarize. So we don't want to just educate people, but we want people to actually take action, whether that's as something as simple as investing in an LED light bulb, or all the way up to solar PV, whatever that looks like. That's kind of where we want people to go. So all of the Solarize ambassadors that will be working for the campaign will be trained either right now or tonight, or through the recording of this. And then it's really about going out into your own community and talking to your neighbors and your friends, or people through events. So it's a statewide campaign, but we really also want it to be local, and we want there to be a lot of creativity and a lot of fun in the kinds of events that are done on the local level, and the kinds of conversations that we then have at the local level about how we can transition our state and a lot of our communities to being more renewable based. So what are the goals of the campaign? What is Solarize South Dakota all about? We have 4 major goals, kind of broad pieces that we'd really like to say at the end of this campaign, at the end of October, that we have accomplished. These were set out by Dakota Rural Action members of our Community Energy Development Committee in April, when we decided that we want to do this. So, of course, getting our message out to as broad an audience as possible. Part of why we wanted this to be a statewide campaign is we want to have a really broad reach. We want to facilitate the process for our members and for the public to adopt renewable energy technology. There are a lot of barriers in South Dakota to people committing to investing in solar, whether it's a solar hot water heater or solar PV. So we really wanted to be facilitators for helping people make that happen. And that's really the work that's going to be done by the energy consultants over the course of the next 4 months. We also want to help people understand the big picture energy economy. And when we say that, those are maybe somewhat vague words, but really we want people just to be thinking about where their electricity is coming from, how much electricity people are using. This is something that in our day-to-day life, like a lot of things, we turn on the lights, they go on, we don't think about it. So it's really a way to get people thinking about how much electricity they're using and the implications of that. What does it take to power our lives, to power our homes, and what are the implications for the broader world in terms of climate change or impacts on health, all of those things. And then we wanted to involve younger people down to school-age children. So this is something that, in not all of our campaigns at DRA we necessarily do, but this campaign really presents an opportunity to do some fun events for kids and to kind of get the whole family involved. So there are different elements of this campaign that really focus on that aspect. And as Solarize ambassadors, if you're really interested in doing some outreach events around schools or around some kids programs, let's talk about that and let's make that happen, because it's definitely part of this campaign. So our objectives are kind of the very specific pieces that we want to be able to say at the end of October that we accomplished. And there are 5 objectives in this campaign. And as Solarize ambassadors, when we talk about recruiting people to take part in the campaign, this is kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about getting people to take action at one of these levels. So the first level is getting people to just take the first step and invest in an LED light bulb. We will actually have these through Dakota Rural Action. So it's going to be a little bit of a fundraiser for the campaign. But for the most part, we're going to be selling them at cost, which is really exciting because they will be $5 or $6. They'll be really inexpensive. And, we'll be able to say that we replaced 1,000 light bulbs by the end of the campaign. The second place where people can commit and interact with the campaign is doing a know your load energy use assessment. And I will email this sheet out to everyone so you can see what this looks like. But basically what this is it's an Excel spreadsheet where you walk through your house and record all of the different ways that you are consuming electricity. And then on the sheet, it will help you calculate out what your electricity use actually looks like and what your load looks like. So how much of a load you as an individual or as a family are putting onto the system. So this is an opportunity for people to really dig in on a personal level about how much electricity they're using. And it's going to be a lot of really fun to promote this part of the program because this is accessible to everyone, whether you are renting, whether you're an individual, whether you're a family. This is the place where a lot of people are going to interact with the campaign. And it's an opportunity for people just to raise their own awareness about their own electricity use. So largely, we think a lot of people are going to engage with the campaign here. And whoever you're talking to, particularly if they're families, it's a family activity that you can do and just walk around with your kids and just see how much electricity you're using. The next level of the campaign is the energy consultations. So these are going to be done with people who come to us and say, I'm really interested in solar. I would love to talk more about this. So we have trained up a bunch of Dakota Rural Action members to be energy consultants. And the reason that we're doing this is because a lot of times it's hard for people to go and find the information they need to be able to invest in solar in some way. So there's a really big information barrier, but it's also really hard when you straight out of the chute go and talk to a salesperson because, you don't know if you have the information you need to be able to judge whether or not you're getting the right information, to be able to make the right decision for your family and for your home. So our energy consultants are going to talk to people about their goals, what kinds of things they would like to invest in. They'll be going over the Know Your Load assessment worksheet, and they will not be acting as salespeople. They're really just helping people get over that information barrier. And then if people say, I'm ready to go, I want to invest in solar, they'll help connect people to the installers and the electricians who can do that work. They'll also be kind of doing some more creative work in terms of talking to people about options for maybe some do-it-yourself solar projects. There's been a lot of interest we've seen in people who want to do as much of the installation as possible themselves, and then either individually or collectively just hire an electrician who can do the final piece of hooking it into the grid. So there's some creative stuff already happening, which is pretty cool. And a lot of that will be done through just these one-on-one conversations that our energy consultants will do. So the final two parts of this are just the actual goals that we've set out of the number of people we want to invest in different types of solar. So we'd like to see at least 15 people committing to installing a solar hot water heater or solar water pump, and at least 8 people installing a full PV system on their home or committing to doing that. And I can tell you that already, I'm pretty sure we're going to blow these goals out of the water, which is really exciting. So as the Solarize ambassadors, you'll be talking to people about the campaign and plugging people in at the point where they're kind of ready to plug in. So at this point, I want to talk just a little bit about some background, some solar facts for folks, and we can just again know that this is being recorded. So if there is information that you miss or other things that you want to know, you can always go back and revisit this. And this was put together by one of the DRA members who's working on the committee, but guy who is also owner of EcoWorks South Dakota, which is a company here that is actually doing some sales and installation work. So the first thing to just know is a little bit about how this energy is coming into our planet. So obviously this is coming from the sun. It is the origin of our Earth's energy sources. Absolutely everything really that happens on this planet is because our sun is amazing. Um, there's so much more power coming from the sun every day than we use. So it's really exciting to think about the potential that we have. When people talk about, well, solar is really not practical for South Dakota, that's definitely not true. The technology has caught up. We are definitely in a place where we can use all of the energy that is coming in to our state. So a little bit about how we capture that then. What are some different ways that we capture that electricity? And of course, the one that people know the most is solar photovoltaics. So basically you are taking that light and you are turning it into electricity, whether that's on your home or whether that's a solar community project. That's kind of what most people know. There's a couple other really cool, and these are just two of them, the concentrated solar power and the solar thermal, that are not as widely adopted, but that are certainly being used. So concentrated solar power is basically concentrating that radiance and turning it into heat, which is then turned into electric generation. And then solar thermal. So you are collecting the heat for direct use. So solar hot water heaters, this is how those function. This is just a little bit of just kind of background information for you. So the surface area that would actually be required to power the world is incredibly small. So these little dots that you see, around on this map are incredibly small, and it actually shows you what it would take to power the entire planet. So it's going to take a relatively small amount of space to power our entire planet if we just kind of took that leap and did it. Solar really is the future of electricity, and I think this is something that in a lot of places people are catching on to. Coal is phasing out, natural gas has a lot of problems. We are installing much more solar in this country than pretty much anything else. The policies that we have, and particularly the policies that we have in South Dakota, are a little bit behind the times in terms of catching up with the innovation and the work that's going on in the energy industry. And this is pretty typical. Policy tends to be a little bit behind technology, but we're really far behind in South Dakota. And this is something that we'll be doing some continuing education on further on in the campaign. But there are a couple of pretty significant policy barriers in that, if you have a PV system and you are connecting it to the grid, the amount that you're paying for electricity is in South Dakota much higher than the amount that you get paid when you sell your electricity. And that's absolutely a policy decision that could be changed, that we would really like to see changed. The other policy element that is really interesting that's being kind of explored across the country is third-party solar ownership. And this is where you have independent private companies that maybe put up, a community solar installation or do larger installations, and then sell that electricity basically as an independent contractor. And the law across the country is really varied in terms of how they allow this. And this is slightly outside the purview of, what we'll be working with in this campaign, but getting into discussions about third-party ownership and talking about community solar are absolutely things that could come out of the work that we'll do within Solarize SD. So in South Dakota, there's really unclear regulations about third-party ownership, largely because no one's ever really tried to do it, particularly with solar here. So there's a long way to go in terms of our policy, but people and communities and companies are rapidly moving toward third-party ownership of solar installations, where people can then just contract to buy that electricity at a set rate for the however long that system lasts, which can be up to 25 years. So just a little bit more about some of the policy elements that you may get into discussions about with people as you're doing your outreach. A lot of what people talk about is net metering, and we don't have net metering policy here in South Dakota. But basically what this is when you as a generator of electricity are selling your power back onto the grid at the rate at which you're buying it. Really, it allows customers who want to put PV up on their homes to get the most value out of their system without having to do a battery backup. So in essence, the grid is acting as your battery backup. The largest objection to this is that people need to pay for the grid, and that net metering policies prevent people from paying their fair share for the grid. But the studies that have been done on that exact question have actually shown that even with retail net metering, people who are putting electricity back on the grid are paying more than their fair share to maintain that grid, largely because there are other ways that you're paying on your electric bill. So net metering is really just looking at your electricity use, but you also have your base charge. A lot of times you have supplemental charges on that bill. So it's a lot of kind of technical billing questions when you get into the weeds, but this is why in some states where solar has really exploded that it's been so successful. They've had really progressive net metering programs that have made it possible for people to make those investments and get their investment recouped in a much shorter period of time. So we don't have this in South Dakota, but we feel that even now there's enough motivation and enough interest for people to invest in solar even without a net metering policy. So some of the benefits of distributed generation, and just in case folks aren't as familiar with that term, distributed generation is really just the opposite of centralized generation, right? So centralized coal power plants, you build a bunch of transmission lines and you send that electricity out. Distributed generation is when the electricity generation is distributed closer to the source of use. So solar panels up on people's homes or a wind turbine out on someone's ranch. Those are distributed forms of electricity generation. This is really where tons of the market is growing right now. There are utility scale solar investments that are being made, but local, community, individual solar installations, and to some extent smaller wind, but that's a little bit more difficult. But really those small scale, local, distributed generation systems are where the market's going, and where a lot of the new capacity in this country is being installed. So solar, sometimes people think that this is still a future technology that's off in the distance, but it's happening now. I mean, this is where people are getting their electricity. So it's pretty exciting to see that happening. And we're really trying to push the envelope through the Solarize campaign to get South Dakota kind of caught up with that. So the market is also a part of why previously solar was a little bit difficult to install, but now there's so much potential because the cost of solar has gone down. The market has really expanded and the cost has gone down so much over the course of the past 5 years. It's been really interesting to watch, and it's been really interesting to talk to folks who've been in this industry for 10 years because there's so much growth and because there is so much potential. And because there's a lot of innovation going on in the market, the costs have really come down quite a bit. So installations of solar PV systems are expected to go up dramatically. And hopefully we're a part of that. Not only that, but people want renewable energy at this point. When you talk about what kind of energy people want to have, it is renewable. People see the writing on the wall in terms of where we're going with pollution and climate change, and it's really not a question in most people's minds. And in the conversations we've had with people prior to launching this campaign, people recognize that South Dakota is behind the curveball in terms of investing in renewable energy. So there's at least that recognition here, which is really good. And this is just a little bit that you have a little bit more information in terms of where the pricing is going, even within the past year, which is a pretty significant drop. I mean, that's 40 cents over the course of 1 year in the cost per installed per installed watt. That's a really big drop. And this is why so many more people are installing this now. So when people talk about, solar is expensive, I can't afford it, this is really important to talk to people about, because people are still thinking 5 years ago when solar was a little bit more expensive, but it's really accessible now. It's come out of the market where it's just the advanced people who can afford it. One thing to know, this probably won't come up in many conversations, but the solar investment tax credit does go all the way through 2016. You can get a 30% tax credit for commercial and residential solar systems. It's the only incentive that exists in South Dakota. There are no state or local level incentives. The only other sort of opportunity that people have to recoup their costs is if they have a small business or, a farm or a ranch where they're installing it. And then they can participate in USDA's REAP program. But those are more conversations that I think that energy consultants will be having with people. But this is just, for your knowledge, South Dakota doesn't have any incentives, but the federal tax credit has been continued through 2016. So I want to move now a little bit more into talking about just the basics of our work, which is doing our outreach, the role that we will be playing as Solarize ambassadors over the course of the next 4 months. So reasons that we do campaign outreach, and sometimes this is self-explanatory, but it's really good to recognize why we're doing this and why the Solarize ambassador role is so important. There has to be a certain level of name recognition and public awareness for people to even know that this campaign is happening. And a lot of the success of Solarize campaigns around the country has been because of word of mouth and because people talk neighbor to neighbor about the campaign. It's about educating people about our issues and getting them to take action and participate in the campaign. We reach out into our own communities to kind of draw people back in and to have those conversations and then to help them take action in a way that is appropriate for them. Membership recruitment, DRA is a membership-based organization. We have set a goal of the number of new members that we'd like to get through this campaign, and that's 50 people. So we're on our way. We've already started recruiting some new members, which is really exciting. But that's definitely a part of growing Dakota Rural Action and growing our ability to be successful in some of our policy work that we're doing to really push the envelope and making South Dakota's policies a little bit more friendly towards solar. And then this is such an important point for everyone. Names, names, names. So whenever we do an event, whenever we table, whenever we go out into the community, collecting the names and the contact information of people who want to participate with us is so important so that we can then hand those names over to the energy consultants so they can do the work that they need to do. So where do we do this? What is this going to look like? Farmers markets, concerts and community events, any popular place, events sponsored by Solarize South Dakota. So this is going to be a big thing that we'll do, house parties and meetings, really anywhere that you can think of, and we can be creative in this. So there are some things that the organizing committee has put forward, particularly for the launch week, and we'll talk a little bit about this at the end, about how we start getting out into the public. But this is an opportunity for you as a Solarize ambassador to think about what are some ways that I can, as a Solarize ambassador, get the word out to more people. So if you have, an evening where you think it might be fun to just invite your neighbors and your friends to your house and have a house meeting and talk about Solarize South Dakota, talk about electricity use, maybe show a short film, give some people some food, and recruit people to take part in the campaign. That's one really easy step that everyone can do that will really help get us that word of mouth outreach that we need. We will be out at farmers markets and out at fairs and festivals over the course of the next 4 months. We'll need people to be tabling and talking to folks and gathering names. So we'll be in communication about setting some of those things up, but it's also really an opportunity for you to identify what are some creative ways that I can think of that we can maybe get the word out. So be thinking about that. And as you're thinking about that, thinking about this sort of set of questions for each event so that we make sure that these are really successful. So why are we tabling, or why are we having this house meeting? Why are we out here? What's our message? What is our action that we're asking people to take? This is always part of everything that we'll do. What is our specific ask of people on that day? It can be showing up to another event. It can be coming to our next meeting. It can be obviously signing up for an energy consultation or committing to do the know your load assessment sheet. And then having a follow-up plan. So this is something that we'll work together to put forward for every single event and every single outreach that we do, is making sure that we have a plan to follow up with the names and the contacts that we get, so that we really do our best to rope people into the campaign. As we're out there, it's important that we are all sort of communicating our story, which is a really individual piece, but then also communicating the core Solarize South Dakota message. So we'll have this at every event, but this is really the piece that communicates why we're doing what we're doing, which is that we need to be a more renewable energy friendly state. And that this campaign is really dedicated toward helping people understand their energy consumption, hedging against rising energy costs, and providing people with the knowledge that they need to invest in solar. So whenever people have questions about what what this campaign is about, that is kind of the core message where people can really kind of latch on to the purpose of what we're doing. And then our core ask. This is going to be the element in every single one of your conversations where you ask someone to do something. So we are asking people to take one step toward a more energy efficient, renewable based life. So whether it's something as simple as just giving us their email address to get updates from the campaign, to doing the Know Your Load assessment worksheet, and then if they're really interested in solar, getting them to sign up for an energy consultation. These are really simple asks, but this is a huge part of any of the outreach work that we do, is making sure that we make that ask of every single person that we talk to. Most people will be more than willing to sign up to get updates from the campaign. A lot of people are really interested in learning more about solar, so a lot of people will want to have that energy consultation. So it's an opportunity just to really talk to people and ask them to participate. So in every event, at every table that we're at, every time you're talking to someone as a Solarize ambassador, make sure that you have this ask in your back pocket. So before the conversation's over, you can just ask them, would you like to sign up for email updates, or would you like to have an energy consultation? A couple things to keep in mind, just straight out of the chute, of course. I know you all, I think most of you, there's a couple of folks that I haven't met in person yet, but always smile, make eye contact. As Solarize ambassadors, we take the word ambassador very seriously. You're literally an ambassador for the campaign. So just be familiar with the message, be familiar with your message and your story, and consider your audience. I don't expect anyone to be going out, in a potato sack or anything, but of course, make sure that you are alive and friendly and welcoming, so that we can get as many people interested and participating in the campaign as possible. So yeah, and in every opportunity, talking about Dakota Rural Action and talking about the work that DRA does can be helpful in that. So the final step here is, if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer those now. But also, we are launching our campaign next week. So we are roaring and ready to go, and ready to get all of you as Solarize ambassadors kind of immediately plugged into the campaign and plugged into participating in the events that we're having. So if you just take that link, plug it into your web browser, That will take you to a document that has all of our launch week events. We've outlined in that document the different volunteer shifts that are available. We'd love to start getting you folks plugged into that right now. So feel free to go to that web, to click on that link, or copy it. I'm not actually sure if through a webinar you can click on the link, but I shortened it so you can just copy it and put it into your browser and sign up for participating in one of those events. And that will kind of just immediately get us started and get you kind of plugged in. So question, at what point will we receive materials for tabling and events? So for local events here, West River, I will be getting materials to folks the morning of. So Patty, for the BAM festival, I'll be out there for that first shift and I'll bring everything out. And we'll want to coordinate with some of the materials that we'll need for the arts projects. For the East River events, the lead Solarize ambassadors are being shipped the materials for those, and they'll have those kind of on hand. So if you want to do a house meeting or if you want to put on an event in your own community, we'll talk about that, and then I will send you whatever materials you need. So we'll have fact sheets, and we'll have, we have several banners that we've made. We can get those sent around the state. Sign up sheets, all of that information I will send out prior to any events that people have. And we do have, if you want to do a house party, we do have a presentation. We have a couple of different presentations and slideshows that you can show that you can actually use. And we can get a script for you. So if you want to talk about solar energy in the campaign, it will be outlined for you to use. We also have a presentation about net metering if people want to do a house party about that, and getting people roped in that way. So there are a couple of different slideshows, that we can get for people for house parties if you want to do that on your own. So next steps then, if folks have any other questions, please just plug them in there and I will answer them. Next steps are actually getting signed up to help out with some of the launch week events. And if there are other events or other questions that you have, please feel free to email me at any point. I'll follow up with everyone individually and just kind of see where you want to plug in individually. If the launch week events are either not in a place where you live, or if you have other ideas for other things that you want to do. We'll be having events and doing outreach and tabling and talking to people for the next 4 months. So the campaign goes through the end of October. So there are a lot of opportunities to do creative outreach in your community. And my role is to really work with all of you to help you get the information and the tools and resources and materials that you need to have the conversations with your neighbors about getting involved in the campaign. So whatever that looks like for you, however that looks in your community, let's have that conversation and let's make that happen, because I think this outreach and the Solarize ambassadors are really going to help get the word out as much as possible. So any other questions, type them in. And if not, I will be in touch with everyone individually over the course of tomorrow and Monday, just checking in with folks and starting to get some more events and opportunities for you to participate as a Solarize ambassador. So if you can, join us at one of the launch week events. And if that doesn't work, let's get something else set up in your community and let's start talking about how we get the word out on this campaign. One final note, if people are interested in helping out with social media and that kind of outreach, email me, sabrina@dakotarural.org. We could use a little bit more help on that, and that's another opportunity for people to participate as a Solarize ambassador and do some cool work. So thank you, folks. I will be in touch. Click that link, copy that into your web browser. Let's make these launch week events as awesome as possible, and I will be in touch over the course of the next couple of days. Thanks, everyone.